Well, good morning and welcome to the live stream of the United Methodist Church of Preston Hollow here in Dallas, Texas. We're excited. Today we are just outside of our executive offices, and so this is part of the building that you have never seen. Every week we want to give you a little glimpse of our church campus and what it looks like. So again, welcome to today's broadcast. You know, I know that this week it has been a difficult week. To even watch the news and stomach through that, it's been so difficult. To the chaos that's happening in Afghanistan, to COVID and how it's ravaging our country and roaring back up, it's been a difficult week. And today, I guess I'm asking, how are you doing? Like really, I'm wondering, how are you doing? When people ask me that now, it's never been more complicated to answer that in my whole life. People say, so how are you doing? And just like I pause and I hesitate for a second and all these thoughts go through my mind. Like, should I tell you the truth or should I answer it contextually? Like how am I doing based on all the stuff that's going on right now? So how are you doing? It's a complicated question to answer. So I've come up with an easy way to explain how you are doing. How many of you use emojis? Now be honest, how many of you have no idea what an emoji even is? In the late 1990s, a Japanese artist named Shigetaki Kurita created the first emoji. He said the heart emoji is the main reason why he decided to create emojis in the first place. He says if you add a heart at the end of a sentence, any negative words feel positive after that. FYI, he never patented the idea, thus he's never made $1 from his creation. So this week I sent a note out to our church family and I asked them all to send some emojis to me that represent how they feel and where we are in life. The first one comes from our senior pastor, Dr. Tom Waichis. First, we hope that you are feeling better, but he sent us this little smirk. And that really is our pastor. He is so easygoing and it's hard to get him rattled. The next one came in from David and Arlene Lowe. Let me tell you, if we ever want someone that's going to be a prayer warrior and lift you up in prayer, it's this couple. That was the symbol they sent me. Then, yee-haw! That's our own Cody McAdoo. I didn't even know they had an emoji with a cowboy hat on it. And then all the way up to Hiawatha, Kansas, we've got Mary K. Rieger. I hear that she is just a laugher and is always laughing. And then here's our Russ Rieger. Russ, I want you to know, after seeing the emoji that you sent, I'm going to let our prayer team start praying for you. David and Arlene, start praying for Russ. I am worried. And then Christopher White, he sent us sort of that I can't believe it emoji. David McKenzie, let me tell you, I'd never seen this. This is an abacus, and he knows where every number is. He's got everything in its slots. Then Diana Delashaw sent us a music note. That is totally her. She loves singing in our choir. Speaking of music, you just saw Spunky Bernone's play, and here he sent us a keyboard. Next is one of our newer families to the church, Bryce and Catherine Lancaster. And of course, little Melody and Maddie. In fact, today is the first week that Maddie is in our in-person worship. And then finally, our own singer and our Preston Hollow star, Courtney Mena. And that is definitely her. She is all love. How many of you would agree that this is an incredibly emotional time in history, right? So many emotions. What would you say to answer that question? If there would be one emoji to summarize your emotional state, and by the way, no turd emojis allowed, what would that emoji be? If there was one word that would describe what you're feeling right now, what would it be? Numb? Tired? Angry? Stressed? Happy? Irritated? Laughing? Anxious or afraid? I think for me, if there would be one word to summarize my emotional state right now, it would be just the word unsettled. Unsettled. Everything in our world feels unsettling to me. Even like the small things. Like it used to be easy just to go up to someone and greet someone. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm measuring it all out. Like, what? What are you? Are you a strict 6-footer, or do you say, heck with that, I'm coming in for the hug? I don't know how to approach others. Are we knuckle bumping? Are we shaking hands? Are we just going to wave at each other? It's an awkward time. Do I need my mask? Do I not? I don't know. It's awkward. Even the little things like that. And then there's the big things like Afghanistan, the pandemic, economic uncertainty, the racial tension, and the political division. And everybody is just so hyped up and emotional. So what I thought we would do is to dive into the theme of emotions, but not just talk about emotions, but talk about them from a Christ-centered perspective. God has given us emotions. They are from God. And what I want to do is to take a look at the emotions of Jesus. What he endured, what he felt, and let his emotions help center our emotions. That we're not just reaching and reacting, but we're responding with Christ-centered emotions. So, I did a little research into emotions of Jesus. And one article I read said that Jesus, in the 4 Gospels, that he actually displayed 39 different emotions. Can you believe that? 39 emotions. Honestly, before reading that, I didn't even know that there were 39 different emotions. Well, until I had a teenage daughter and 2 teenage sons. Then I could see all 39 emotions in less than a 1-minute conversation with them. Let's take a look at a few other emojis in our church. Jean Moore. She couldn't just send me 1. She couldn't just send me 2. She sent me 3 crazy emojis. Brett Fincher. I don't know what you're looking at, but those are big eyes. Mike Larson. What a teddy bear. He is all love and all the time. Margaret Hamilton. She is the only one in our church that gets the gold star of a red heart. She represents love at our church. Brian Jackson. Yes, he is. That's him all day long. I didn't even know there was a camper or a travel trailer emoji. And then Scott Schmidt, his faithful camper sidekick. Jill Johnson Scott, always loving our community and making a difference. Adriana, who watches our kids and takes care of our children's ministry, humble and sweet. Hadley Edwards, he watches us faithfully every week from New Orleans, along with Marguerite Jenkins. In fact, we want you guys to know we're thinking about you and lifting you up in prayer as that hurricane comes in to New Orleans today. And next, our own Kathy Azell. Be praying for her. She's been under the weather this last week. Listen, Jesus was God in the flesh. He was God, and yet he was a human being, and he expressed and felt very real emotions. I'd like to give you some examples. Whenever Jesus looked over Jerusalem and he saw all those people that he loved, that God loved, and they were disconnected. They were disconnected from God. He felt this deep, sincere emotion of grief. They're missing out on the very thing that God wants for them. Whenever there were religious leaders that cared more about the rules and the law and more than the people, he felt this righteous anger towards the hypocrisy and the sin and the lack of love. Whenever 72 followers came back and were talking about how God had used them to make a difference, Jesus felt the overwhelming sense of being overjoyed at the faithfulness of God through his people. When Jesus' friend Lazarus died, even though he knew he had the power to raise Lazarus from the dead, Jesus felt the emotion of just profound sadness. In fact, he wept over the death of his close friend. Before going to the cross in the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus knew what was about to happen. and he felt lonely, and he felt anxiety. He felt overwhelmed knowing the pain that was about to come. Today, I want to look at one of the emotions of Jesus, what he feels towards us, and I believe that will help us to express that emotion towards others. We're going to take a look at Luke 7. We'll start in verse 11, and Jesus, it's his famous message known as the Sermon on the Mount. And in verse 11 it says that soon afterward, Jesus went with his disciples to a village of Nain, and a large crowd followed him. A funeral procession was coming as he approached the village, and a young man who had died and was a widow's only son. And a large crowd was traveling with her. When Jesus saw her, here's the emotion. His heart overflowed with compassion. He looked at this woman and he said, "Don't cry." Then he walked over to the coffin and he touched it. "Young men," Jesus said, "I tell you, get up." And the dead boy sat up and began to talk, and Jesus gave him back to his mother. Luke says that great fear swept that crowd that day, and they praised God, saying, "A mighty prophet has risen among us, and God has visited his people today." The power of Jesus expressed through deep and sincere compassion. So if you can imagine, you've got this young mom who's already lost her husband, this boy's father, and now she's a widow, and she loses her only son. Emotional, overwhelmed with grief. At her deepest moment of pain, verse 13 says, the Lord Jesus saw her. He saw her. What's really interesting in that there's over 40 references in the Gospels that we're told that Jesus saw someone, which is sort of funny to me. It says Jesus saw somebody, because you would think he saw everybody, right? Well, he saw her. He noticed her. She was a single mom, a widow who had lost her husband, and now she loses her only son. And in the middle of all this chaos, Jesus looks on at her. What emotion did Jesus feel when he saw something and someone in deep and profound pain? What Jesus felt is the very same thing that he feels for you whenever you're hurting. What he felt for her was the very same thing that he feels for you and for me when we're afraid or when we're struggling. Jesus feels the very same thing for you when you're hurting as he did for this woman who was in pain. In verse 13, when the Lord saw her, his heart overflowed with compassion. There wasn't enough room in his heart for all the compassion that he felt. His heart overflowed. And he cares about you more than you could ever imagine. He sees your pain. He hears the cries of your heart. He knows when you feel desperate. He knows when you can't catch a breath, when your heart rate pounds and you feel like so much anxiety that you can barely even find your next breath. The Lord sees you, and he knows that pain. Jesus sees this grieving mom. He hurts with her. He grieves for her. And then in verses 13, he says, "Don't cry. Don't cry." And he walks over to touch the coffin. No boundaries, no rules, no laws can keep Jesus from expressing the depth of the compassion that he feels for those who are hurting. And Jesus touches the boy. And imagine the crowd gasping there that day. Scandalous. How can you do this? But more incredibly, the boy gasps. He took a breath and then he started talking. You need one touch. Just one touch. Just one touch from the author of life. The giver of life brings dead things back to life. Just one touch. Just one moment. Just one word. Just one sense that not only is he with you, but he cares. What did it take to completely alter this boy and his grieving mom? Just one touch. My prayer is today that somebody watching right now this service online, that somebody who came back into church or back to this live stream, that there would just be a moment, maybe one word or one song or one prayer or one sense of the goodness and the grace of God crossing whatever barrier that you feel has separated you from God. And know this, that our God crosses lines to show His love with no exceptions. Just one touch, the Lord saw her. He cared and He touched. And it's almost impossible to describe what this did for this grieving mom, because moments before, she had absolutely nothing. He comes back to life, this little boy, and Jesus carries him to his mom. And not only does He give her son back to her, He gives her hope back. It's my prayer today that for somebody who feels anxious, for somebody who feels afraid, and somebody who feels bitter and irritated or agitated and always on guard, and for someone who even feels unsettled like me, that with just one touch, God would give you your hope back. This last week, many of you know that I went back to Colorado to lay my brother to rest. It was an unexpected death. We did not get to say goodbye or prepare. It was one of the most challenging and difficult weeks of my life. I want to say thank you to my church family. I wasn't expecting the outpouring of love, support, calls, text messages, and emojis of prayer and hearts and flowers. Some of you even sent real flowers. They're a little more expensive than the emoji flowers, but they were all appreciated. I don't have the words to tell you how much I love you, my church family. Okay, speaking of our church family, I'm going to pick it back up here. We have one last round of emojis, Joel. Who do we have here? We've got Jerica Strong, who just got married to her strong husband, Jonathan Strong. Then we've got Joel Cook. You can't knock him down for nothing. He's always got a smile and happy. Then we got Martez McKee. I don't even understand what all of those mean. The closed eyes, the giggling thing, and laughing. We love the joy that Martez gives. Then you've got Tom Burt. I noticed that Tom Burt is one of the most loving people that we know, but he also sent the tired emoji, as you can see that as well. He's the Senior Vice President of Children's Health, which they're nearing capacity right now, and he's working very, very long hours. Kathy McKenzie, she's on the same struggle bus as Tom Burt. She needs some sleep. Delisa Hatcher, let me tell you, I always can't wait to get a hug from her. She is so loving and life-giving. And then Layla Thompson, she must be struggling on this one. She's sighing. I think she's just embarrassed that we mentioned her again. And then Chris Wallercheck, it seems like you might be having a life crisis. I don't even understand all of those emojis, especially the upside down one. I don't even know. Finally, there's a last two I wanted to mention here. I called Gene Riggs, but he wouldn't call me. So this is the emoji that I chose for Gene, because I can tell you he can be a devil sometimes. And then lastly, his beautiful wife, Karen Riggs. What an angel. Thanks to everyone who sent me their emojis. Well, listen, I want to close with this. The pandemic has changed us all forever, and we're all making the best in this time. I love our church and this place so much. I love the presence of God and what happens. So how are you doing? If you could describe your emotional state in one word, what would you say? And no matter what that word is, then reach in close to the God who is moving towards you as you speak. Whatever line you feel separates you from His goodness, know that He is stepping across that line. He is a rule breaker who cares about you, and there is nothing that's going to keep Him from pursuing you, from reaching out to you, from loving you, from showing you His grace and His goodness. He's coming for you to show you He notices, that He sees you, and that He cares about you more than you can ever imagine. When this widow's only son experienced the resurrection life from the only Son of God, there was nothing that was dead that his compassion couldn't bring back to life. So get your hope back and know that he cares about you. It only takes one touch. I want to end with showing you my emoji. It's the thumbs up. I always try to stay positive and optimistic, so I'm always giving the thumbs up. Isn't it interesting that there's no thumbs down emoji? Even Shagataka Karita knew that we didn't need a thumbs down emoji in our world. So, thumbs up, church.